9%. So I'm gonna here, hold on for a sec. I haven't even said anything, for Christ's sake. I'm just gonna be like really basic with the human design reading for today. Going, you know, the first emotional concern, not condescending the emotions being complex because it's relating to the mind and the body. And the mind and body, as that shifts, the emotions have a complex shift. So there's an emotional shift complex within how we keep showing up to ourselves, right? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing on the internet? What are we doing when we're just like going from task to task or project to project to have some type of ambition for some type of reality setting to make the the ambition have some type of very unique pausing effect, right? So I just had a date with a blueberry monster, and that blueberry monster was just saying, don't be too blue, but sometimes you need the blue when you be too red. So come back to the blue when you have dealt with the red. And the perspectives are extremely different. Some more natural explanation of that is the gorilla is not going to think the same as the bear or the lion. The gorilla, the bear, and the lion, they're completely different things. Same with different types of individual humans. Humans on humans are extremely diverse in so many different examples because the life path is extremely diverse based on the choices you make, and then how you're created on some type of genetic forefront from a star constellation, and that being a different miracle in itself and magic within itself. And that's the thing we have to kind of see what's preserving that, or maybe not, and I guess there's just different oppositions to different types of observations. I'm not going to get too dramatic with, the different types of esoteric warfare that are, such as the metaphorical lion versus the bear, right? Or whatever. And that's just a metaphor. If you want to subscribe to one archetype and think one archetype's better than the other, even that it could be a ghastly mistake, because not necessarily, pride could have a negative effect. Too much pride could be arrogance, and arrogance could turn into blindness. And you could be so arrogant and think, regardless of the level of intelligence you have, arrogance could blind you to something of you not seeing that you could be whatever animal that you fucking are, and there's like 20 different animals outside you, and there's 20 other ways, just for one metaphor setting, to think. So we can't let the arrogance blind us, because it's fatal. Because if we're trying to travel through the dark and we can't see, we don't have the light of God's clarity, then we're not going to go through that temple of darkness clearly, right? So there, for me to just fucking nuance that shit is on some other shit, right? So whoa, so Mars is in a very direct pocket degree section in Scorpio itself. Within this placement of Scorpio, there's kind of, all of the zodiac constellation arenas, they could be looked at even as their own respective metaphorical mountain. by them having their own unique shape of the mountain, original open source with a different original spiritual source nexus, respectively. And then every constellation could have their own metaphorical shape of the mountain, and then every constellation could have their own unique rhythmic pacing of peaking and down plowing, right? They could have their unique heights and depths, right? So within this Scorpio, and Mercury just went into Scorpio too. So Mercury is whizzing around the whole zodiac sign on his own natural rhythmic accord based on he's surface level coding it. He's on his own calendar that could have a secret, connection to just the surface level 365 sun calendar, right? Because 365 it's the sun is in a different degrees throughout the throughout the um throughout the basis of the 12 signs. And as the sun's going through that whole circuit of the constellations, so is Mercury, right? And as Mercury's doing it, he's his own beacon of effectively kind of like organizing the code on a whole different level, organizing Google's underground, fundamental code, right? Or organizing like communication code and communication protocols, organizing like different, necessary science formulas and how certain science formulas such as different types of like physics, chemistry, and biology, their functions within the waking reality of life as well, right? We need biology to kind of maintain some type of homeostasis with the environment. We need some type of chemistry to see what bonds with us, what reacts with us, what's favorable to us per our unique careers metaphorically, and then we need physics on how we're moving through that shit. So that's on some so Mercury and Mercury could be like the surface level of that, and then Saturn could be like something of quote unquote a metaphysical jailer mechanic to this because we're only scratching the surface to like what the Saturn shit really is. The Saturn shit, it is something of it is like the according to like the significant recent guard, it is something of like the dwelling place itself, right? How you're ascribed to the the um the pretty much the housing you live in, right? How you're mending that, that kind of infrastructure thing, how the infrastructure thing could be hacked and whatnot. So as Mercury is going through the signs, Mercury's in Scorpio, so we're having some type of communication, we're having some type of code, we're having some type of natural science code, right? The Mercury, respectively, is also natural sciences because we're our own science experiment. Mercury, us having the ability to have some type of inner dream communication, the nervous system being a different part of like a different type of even metaphorical like marine biologist organism, right? You in one different shifting of not necessarily just a metaphor, we in ourselves, the human being's genetic code could be relative to even like esoteric marine biology, which is the humans in dream time, right? So Mercury and Scorpio, that intuitively came out. We're having communication on internal, like kind of seeing the other side of the preparation of warfare. Because even Taurus could be just like Taurus with its dark sides and tones of itself. It could also be like the masculine side and the overbearing kind of like surface level war use side of all of these different energies. Mars through the signs, or just like seeing the Taurus element being used for a Mars thing. The Taurus energy could also be used like kind of like designing a war front or some type of like even like aesthetic for the war, right? Taurus could be like kind of preparing the charades, right? Or preparing like the theater, like the fixed signs. It's like kind of putting something together, right? You're like crafting something, right? The fixed signs, it's a craft, right? So Taurus could be like you're really like you might be like beautifying some like deadly poetry, and that could be a bad example, but I'm sure you could like shape that up, right? To be like like seeing how that's a thing, right? As you're your own individual rising sign and moon and sun sign, you're gonna go through the different contexts of the constellations on they how they have a theme and how other planets influence their constellation and how they receive different themes of like warfare and other planetary themes and how that's another unique type of differentiation, different new elements kind of like interacting with other new elements to create something new. Then all of these signs, they could be used in different ways through the matrix, but still the matrix, the Saturn, the Mercury thing, it's going to cap us to go towards some type of regime, and in the crux of that regime could be the Mars shit too, right? It's just that low key, like, don't say anything, but we know it's like it's one of those things that it's not about necessarily not speaking about it or speaking about it. It's like it's just one of those things that doesn't need to be said. It's like it's one of those things that's just like it's its own thing where it's already naturally on the hush, right? Like it's its own thing, right? Like and for me to say it so bluntly like that, or it's just a different type of perspective of intelligence, right? So Mars and Mercury cusping Scorpio, that is like that's root chakra and throat chakra. So the root chakra, we could actually like ground some type of like natural self, some type of calmness self. Like there's a Mars and Mercury conjunction. It's like kind of adapting itself towards seeing how the Mars energy could be balanced, right? Particularly because Mars is as is at his home ruler house in internal depth, feminine, dark Scorpio. Mars is like a significant shareholder there, right? And Mercury is there when Mars is at his house. So Mercury is going to have a new broadcast communication frequency signal, original open source beyond your AI on a different future timeline, is saying respectively, and original galactic artificial intelligence record everybody's cognitive dissonance on just a different level. So Mercury is going to have the deets of how Mars is relaxing in his internal dark feminine house of Scorpio. Mercury's there kind of like in his own casual way. He's kind of like reporting it. He's kind of making a story out of it. He's kind of having his intel, his communication, his whole communication dashboard theme. Esoterically, the esoteric WhatsApp, the esoteric Discord is saying Mercury is in Scorpio. It's so the esoteric Discord and WhatsApp is like we're in the fucking we're in the after effects of war, the barren wasteland energy, the dry desert, reflourished deathly sinew energy of just how war, the after effect of war could have a dark nourishment. That dark nourishment of the after effect of war is the barren wasteland of a particular type of dry death and a wet death. That's Scorpio. Scorpio's a dry death and a wet death at the same time. Within its going, because it's going through death and it's feeling the death extremely, dryly and wetly, coldly and hotly. So it's going through the extremes of that. So Mercury, are the Mercury self collectively is broadcasting. The collective Earth is feeling the extremes of all of this shit, particularly more so because Mars is there at his house. Mars is in Scorpio, so Mars conjunct Mercury in Scorpio, and Mars is just here. He's just broadcasting, like Mars itself is in that Scorpio arena where he's on a certain very particular position where it's just like this frequency of directness, right? Direct, knowing, and maybe kind of like on a different paradoxical way, kind of having a deep dark reflection based on how we're having unique effects and byproducts of what internal Mars could like be kind of like what his program is trying to tell us, right? What is internal Mars's program trying to tell us? He's at his house in Scorpio and he's on a very specific theme gate, and that theme gate is just directness. So it's kind of like what's coming to me is kind of like a dark insect being cracked from the cocoon. And as that dark insect is being cracked from the cocoon, it's a whole quote unquote foreign species that has an energy we've never really seen in respective to like, Scorpio influences and different types of differentiation. And all of us having the chance to go through that, to feel that energy and however it kind of gleams past us, right? So for some reason, the Mars Mercury conjunct in Scorpio is just catching my eye right now. Obviously, like it's good to touch upon like the surface level, like Moon, Venus, and Sun, because Venus is kind of the thing that's kind of like pulling us back to like in how we could be disaligned with just kind of like how we could just kind of like yeah, so just like the Venus stuff is like it's right there. Venus going into her rulership, and so she's gonna like now shit's gonna really get organized, right? As it's gonna like kind of there's gonna be a welcoming home energy within Venus and Libra, or starting to, and then Sun kind of concluding Libra. I'll just read the Sun summary report. Gate 32 duration, gate of continuity, conservatism. The only thing which endures is change. The instinct to adapt in the now without losing continuity while maintaining our basic nature. So, channel of transformation, design of being driven, splenic to root, part of tribal ego circuit with keynote for support. So there's similar like keynotes also, it would seem, throughout there's like a basis of keynotes is what, the specialist could miss as well, right? So there could be a basis of keynotes that could kind of repeat themselves through like, certain corners of the constellations, right? Awareness through gate 32 is focused on constant evaluation. So we're being evaluated on a natural, Venus level, right? Because it's the sun is in Libra, right? So there's a constant evaluation level that's kind of like being overturned out of the critic Virgo, right? There could be like a kind of like a more suspicious fixed observation of a fixed critic in Virgo, and then that criticism could then turn into like some type of natural evaluation as an instinct, and then I'll keep reading, as an instinctive recognition of what can and cannot be transformed. So we like don't necessarily know what could be realistic, right? For some odd reason, within the changing of times, respectively, an underlying fear of failure could put the brakes on runaway ambition. Gate 32's ability to adapt yet maintain its true nature is the spleen's contribution to the material continuity of the tribe. An underlying fear of failure could put the brakes on runaway ambition. So it's like we're also within Libra season. There's also like this unique fear buster, right? Original open source, right? There's like some type of unique courage is needed to find your why and then apply that why and like, be brave enough to show up however you could show up, so you could keep tending to the ambition so the ambition doesn't die. So the Libra is saying like kind of keep showing up respectively, keep adapting, maintain your true nature if you can. And obviously that true nature is not necessarily about good or bad, but it could be distorted or non-distorted on a different ma- logically mathematical kind of perspective if you just think about it. The spleen's contribution to the material continuity of the tribe. So this is, Libra ironically is like coming from, young spiritual like, talents, gifts, and inheritances, and then that having a pivotal focus to tribal continuity, mutual tribe benefits, right? So the Libra could get like kind of like, perhaps like, kind of like get used some like unfairly, right? Like extremely unfairly, because it's like it's the one kind of like bringing like, survival contribution energy just by being present, and then somehow that being hacked and just dark, right? And that it just is what it is within the advanced logic of it, right? This is part of our contribution as well. A great deal rests on what is recognized and valued, and thereby encouraged and retained by the tribe. One of our gifts is recognizing who has the skills or education to move up in the world. So, like this human design stuff, there's a complete, not necessarily an opposition, but there's a dissonance cognitively that won't do this stuff, right? So even though it's a natural theme of like this could be happening, the collective not self won't necessarily make these readings happen, which the HD specialist won't necessarily break it down like this intuition, right? And it's just what it's just you could tell who's like really like, more like, more just, I guess, quote unquote, informatively better. One of our gifts is recognizing who has the skills of education to move up in the world. So Libra season somehow, Sun Libra, third deacon Libra, more or less, or second 2.5 deacon Libra, is saying, mental health. So the live is kind of being choppy. So I don't know, man. But I'm within a minor note. I feel like Libra season could also like kind of recognize the maturity of mental health, right? So within my path, there's a part of me that's balancing the mental health, and I don't know why it's being choppy. So this is a gate of prolonged indecision. We are apt to find ourselves agonizing over how to maintain a balance between what is working successfully and opening ourselves up, or an organization up to the unknown risks, fear of failure that accompany transformation and change. Change is inevitable, however, and when it becomes part of the equation, as ways to keep society from repeating what does not work while also embracing what has lasting value without the control of. Thank you, guys.